Here's a warning. This video discusses sensitive topics such as food insecurity, starvation, and elder abuse. Please be aware that these topics can be traumatic, and click away if these are disturbing to you and your mental health. Your well-being is the first priority. So, usually I post informational videos about chronic pain and how it influences our lives, or with new information about treatments, or research on how things affect chronic pain patients versus the general population. Today is going to be a little bit different. Today's video is on the topic that stayed with me and, haunted me for over the last decade. While many families celebrated together this last week and gave thanks for all they experienced this last year, I couldn't help but think about one woman who spent her last Thanksgiving in a very different circumstance. A woman who passed away not long after. Though I never met her personally, her story was chilling, and it stayed with me in the years since I heard it. I don't think there's a week that goes by that I don't think about her and her circumstances, and how it falls to all of us to prevent more stories like hers from unfolding. It deserves to be told. I'm changing pertinent information for many varied reasons and filling in the gaps where I legitimately don't have all of the information. All right. It was the early 2000s, and a family doctor was concerned about one of his elderly patients. The woman, Jane, let's say, had chronic pain and was extremely isolated, as many people become when their pain worsens and their activity level decreases. She was fond of and reliant on her adult son, whom we'll refer to as Jerry. When the doctor voiced his concerns to Jane, noting her inadvertent weight loss and some blood work that indicated poor eating habits or maybe malnutrition, she waved him off. "I know my own business best. I'm doing fine. Don't worry." She had usually eaten primarily from a large garden she had, with a lot of healthy, nutrient-rich foods. So the doctor was kind of perplexed. But he knew opiates can lower appetite, and as she had chronic pain, he just told her to start watching what she ate, trying to take in more calories and more nutrient-rich foods. She agreed, good-naturedly, and her son, Jerry, drove her home. She missed her next appointment. But it wasn't uncommon for people to miss around the summer holidays. All the stress from family visiting and traveling, the possibility that the recent rainy weather caused a pain flare could all explain her not showing up. The next appointment came, and she smiled brightly when the doctor came in, but he saw the tiredness and dullness in her eyes. Her skin was ashy and crepier than before due to even more significant weight loss. He asked what happened to the plan. She didn't look well. She hemmed and hawed about summer vacation, added activity, saying family stress and visiting made her not eat on a regular schedule. She appreciated his concern and would keep it in mind. She bragged on her son Jerry and talked about how he'd gotten a promotion at his job. It was longer hours, but he would come and visit her, drop off groceries so she didn't have to get out on bad days, and keep her posted on everything in his life. She loved those visits. He was the apple of her eye, and she couldn't be prouder. This was wonderful, the doctor thought, but we need to get a handle on this weight loss. There was a concern in the back of his mind, knowing everything from malnutrition to cancer could be at the root of these changes, and he requested to do some blood tests. She patted him on the arm and declined. "Thanks for taking such good care of me, but we know what's wrong. I don't need blood work." Now that summer is ending, I should feel much better. Jerry will see to it that I eat. So off they went, Jane and Jerry, back home. The next time she was supposed to visit, she didn't arrive. The next visit came and went. Now she couldn't have pain medication refilled until she saw the doctor. No follow-up was made, no quarterly. She didn't answer the calls the clinic made. The doctor hoped she'd found another care provider, as often happens. But as time went on, there were a lot of patients to see. There hadn't been anything obviously wrong. Jane could decide for herself if she wanted to come back, and so he went about the business of helping other people. Now, this next part is mostly pulled from her journal and from official reports. Jane went back to her house where her son dropped her off. Jerry was preparing to move. The promotion called for it. She was so proud of him and happy that he was doing so well at his job. She waited for him to bring groceries, and he would call, say he couldn't come. He was too far away, too busy to come that day, unless she needed him. She would say she was fine. She'd eat a salad prepared with food from her garden. And it seems this pattern continued for a while. Jerry may have come a few times with groceries when he visited. I think I remember there being something about a report about a concerned neighbor, but she waved the adult protective services people away, saying she wasn't being abused, her son took good care of her, and checked in. Life continued for a time in this way. Then autumn came. She pickled what little food remained of her garden, gathered dandelions, and made tea. She wrote in her journal about Jerry, his life and exploits, her grandchildren and their successes. She was happy for them. She was in pain, though, more pain than usual, because now she was out of medication. But she could get by for a while, she thought. She didn't know how she would get to an appointment without her son, and he was so busy now. Then the last food from her garden ran out. Winter was setting in. Her pain was worse due to changes in the barometric pressure and the cold. The last time she was spotted, she was in her yard. She waved to a neighbor. From her journal, I think she was out picking out the last dandelions for tea. Sometime later, she was found. She had died at least several days beforehand. The coroner sent the file up to the medical examiner, as is usual for cases where neglect or wrongdoing are possible. And it was revealed she died of starvation. In the 2000s, in the United States, in a suburb, surrounded by neighbors, with food, this woman had died. An investigation was opened, as is proper, but I never heard of anything that came from it. If everything I've heard about this case is true, I can't help but wonder if there was some element of elder abuse going on here. At least neglect. This woman was isolated due to her age and chronic pain in combination with each other. And while she could have gotten help if family pride and that belief in her son hadn't stopped her from reaching for the phone, there were points where she could have been set on a different path if someone stepped in. I don't tell this story to be sensational or to bum people out, but sometimes I run into it can't happen here mentality. It 100% can, has, and will continue to do so. While about 100 deaths a year from this doesn't sound like much compared to the population of the US, when you consider how needless those deaths are, it's an absolute travesty. 10.2% of households in the US were food insecure last year, with 3.8 of them, or 5.1 million households, having very little food security for at least some portion of the year. Most studies on this focus rather on lost productivity and how much money companies can't make on people too ill to work rather than the human cost. But there has been enough evidence gathered to say that the poor are more likely to experience chronic pain. Without family to be a support system, people can suffer and even die, as this story showcases. Elder abuse rarely gets this bad, but about 1 in 10 people over 60 who are primarily at home are estimated to suffer some form of it. Well over 500,000 assaults were treated at a hospital around the country in about a 15-year period. While we give thanks for all we have, it's important to remember all the people who have less. While many of us have pain, decreased mobility, and quality of life, luckily most of us aren't in Jane's shoes. I know chronic illness takes a lot of our expendable income and just burns it to ash. But if you have the means to give, there are a few laudable organizations linked below, including the Nobel Peace Prize winning World Food Program, especially through Share the Meal, their app, where you can donate for as little as 80 cents for an entire day's worth of food to someone in a program that you choose. We often don't have a lot left over, but sometimes we do have that 80 cents. When I do, I think of Jane. It's just, we have this day of thanks. And then so often it's full of stress of travel and family. It's what we think about. Then there's the high holy day of consumerism that is Black Friday. We're thankful for what we have for a day, and then we immediately go and buy more. Then comes the full month of Christmas shopping and Christmas. Don't get me wrong, it's good to give and to be giving in our daily lives. But in the meantime, there are a lot of people struggling. And chronic pain makes it more likely that we're in that boat. There isn't a week that goes by that I don't think of Jane and her story. And I just thought, now that I'm discussing health and behavior, you should know her story too. And the risks that made her story more likely, and more likely to play out the way that it did. That's enough storytelling for one day, I guess. As always, I'm wishing you the best of health, the highest quality of life possible, and a great day. Stay curious, because you never know what you'll learn next.